Good morning. There is high inflation in North America and Western Europe, and it's especially a problem in food pricing. But outside the United States and Canada and the European Union, food prices are falling. And across the parts of the world that are productive economies, because they're either natural resource economies or because they have strong factory and export markets, inflation doesn't exist. Generally, prices are falling across lots of sectors. New cars, energy, electronics, housing, all these things are getting cheaper. But let's look at food today and why there's such a big difference between going to the supermarket in the United States and almost anywhere else. And let's consider too that the problem inflation poses for food producers in America and Europe. American farmers are seeing their costs go up across the board. Insurance, financing, equipment costs, repair expense, labor. But outside North American and European markets, farmers do not have these high input costs. So let's look at the food situation and how this is playing out for consumers and producers in Western markets. American and European farmers should be having the time of their lives. This should be the highest profits they've ever seen. The population of the world needs to be fed, and two of the biggest food producing countries are at war, Ukraine and Russia. But instead, our farmers are getting wiped out by local inflation on everything they buy to grow food and by falling food prices for the crops they do deliver to market. These charts come from FinViz, and they're the prices that are being paid in global markets. I've gone back 18 months so we can see the pricing trends. Here is corn, soybean oil, soybean meal, and soybeans. Soybeans are typically used as animal feed. Rough rice, wheat, sugar. Here are the meats, live cattle and feeder cattle. Feeder cattle are calves being delivered to feedlots. They're under 1,000 pounds, under 380 kilograms or so. Live cattle are fully grown adults, or they will be at contract expiration. Here is pigs. So across the board, generally down and down by a lot. In most markets across the world, not in North America or in Europe, farmers are able to buy Chinese farm equipment without high tariffs and without the expensive engines that are required by the European Union or by the Environmental Protection Agency. This raises the cost of equipment by thousands of dollars per unit. Compared to farmers in the US, Canada, and Europe, farmers can buy Chinese equipment with diesel motors for only about 20% for the cost of their machines compared to our farmers. That lowers their capital costs and dramatically increases productivity, so food prices come down. Also, countries outside Western Europe and North America can freely buy food from huge exporters that are sanctioned by Washington and Brussels, and that lowers prices too. For example, Russia is a huge exporter, along with Iran. So as they produce and export, prices drop. Food prices in the US have not dropped. They're going the other way. Rabobank is a global bank that finances a lot of the world's ag trade, and they've got an index called the barbecue index. They simply figure the cost of a July 4th barbecue in the United States with 10 people. In 2024, that barbecue cost a record $99. US consumers are exhausted from the highest food prices in history. Personal finances are getting worse. Debts are going up. Savings and inflation-adjusted incomes going down. Restaurants are facing higher costs of doing business, higher interest rates, high inflation in the US supply chains are creating problems for all the producers. It's taking longer to earn the money to buy food, and food costs jumped 25% overall in the past 4 years, and it's still going up. Credit card debt has gone up a lot in just 2 years, and Americans are draining their savings. Excess savings hit a record high 2 years ago, and now they're at a record low. This is from the IFT, and their reporting has some big problems. Food inflation is the highest in generations and is having a real impact on consumers. Food costs are the top inflation concern. But here is where their report goes off the rails. Supply chains are almost back to normal, but some commodity prices are high because of the Ukraine war, including for sugar and seed oils. This part is completely false. Here are the charts again for sugar and the seed oils, canola and soybean oil. What's more, the Ukraine is also producing record volumes of food, so much so that the European Union is shutting off imports from Ukraine to protect their own farmers. The EU Commission is bringing back tariffs on oats and eggs from Ukraine and will probably raise tariffs on Ukrainian sugar too. Here's a full list of the foodstuffs coming out of Ukraine that are going to get hit with import restrictions. Ukrainian eggs, chicken, sugar, oats, corn, grains, honey. That's a lot of the food that Europeans buy when they go to the grocery stores, and the EU is jacking up the prices on them or shutting their borders off to new shipments coming in. And remember, this isn't food coming over from Russia, it's from Ukraine. So when European officials give speeches about how they want to do more to help Ukraine, and the next day they say they want to do more about the high food prices, could kill two birds with one stone right there. Buy more food from Ukraine and the food prices will drop. They won't do that because that'll hurt their own farmers though. Our own media and press are saying that the Ukraine war is jacking up prices and reducing supply, but it's the opposite. Bloomberg gets into the sugar situation. For 5 years, the average exports of sugar from Ukraine to the EU were 21,500 tons per year. This year, it's over 700,000 tons. Food supplies are soaring across the world. Ukraine is literally a war zone, and they're producing record food. So much so that they'll put French farmers out of business if the tariffs don't go up. Russia is producing and exporting record food. Even Africa is fine because they can get low-cost Chinese equipment to push their crop yields up. Across the entire ag complex, there are only two outliers where prices are moving higher: coffee and cocoa. These are markets that are being weirdly affected by China. China's drinking more coffee than ever. They went from drinking literally zero coffee 30 years ago to being one of the world's largest markets. Same with chocolate. But coffee and cocoa are two crops that can't really benefit nearly as much from the mechanization that Chinese industry has made possible for everything else. But for everything else, here are the prices. And if you're grocery shopping and you're seeing big price increases instead, it's because the money you're using is no good. Here's a farm in Hubei province. Be good.
Who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever.